And welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Peter Winnick. I'm the founder and CEO at Thought Leadership Leverage, and you're joining us on a LinkedIn live version of our podcast, which is Leveraging Thought Leadership. And today, my guest is Jen Fisher. Jen is really interesting on a bunch of levels in that she is a podcaster, she is an author, she's got a new book out called Hope is the Strategy, which we're going to get into in a little bit. And she is a workplace well-being expert, amongst other things. So welcome aboard, Jen. How are you today?
I'm doing great, and it's good to be here with you. Thank you.
Cool. So what does a workplace well-being expert do all day?
Boy, that's a loaded question. Well, I mean, my mission and goal in my work life, if you will, is to help make work better for humans. And so, that is a big statement, and that could be anything from training and education
Mhm.
to tools and resources, but I think more recently and perhaps more importantly, helping leaders and everyone, all of us, rethink the design of work and the impact that perhaps some,
Mhm.
long-standing norms, beliefs, and behaviors are having on people's well-being at work,
So
and
what,
why
what
that
is
matters, quite frankly.
what does better mean, right? Because your better might be different than my better in terms of make it better at work.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, right. And so I think that that gets at the heart of it is that, for a long time, we believed that, workplace well-being was a one size fits all solution. Like, hey, let's
Right.
roll out this program or this tool or this resource, and, it's going to help everybody. And I think we've learned along the way that that's not true, because we're all unique and we're all different, and we all have different life circumstances and different needs, which makes the work challenging. I would say that, from the broad research that exists on the topic, we now know that there are a handful of things that really impact people's well being at work. And
Mhm.
it's not whether or not they have the right tools and resources, or whether or not their company provides yoga class to them at 2 o'clock on Thursdays. Very obviously we know that a big piece of it is workload.
Yeah.
Another big piece of it is my relationship with my coworkers and my
Yep.
leaders. Do I feel comfortable? Do I feel psychologically safe? Another big piece of it is kind of autonomy and agency. Do I
Yeah.
have control over how my work gets done and control over certain aspects of my work? And so to summarize that, that is about kind of design and ways of working that we haven't looked at in the past in terms of how it affects our well-being.
So stay there for a minute. If there's no one size fits all answer to the better, which makes sense, right? Because it could be lots of different things.
Yeah.
But it used to be like pre-COVID, at least we agreed on what the term workplace was. That was the place I went every morning, right? Like that
Yeah.
was get on
Yeah.
the train, do the thing. Here's my desk. Here's the conference room, like whatever. That doesn't even mean the same thing anymore, right? So workplace is really more of a concept than an address. So
Yeah.
how does that change the equation for you then?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's such an important insight. And I also think that it is why we're seeing some of these wild swings of, like, everybody's going to the office, nobody's going to the office, we're going to the office 2 days, we're going to, like, because nobody has really stepped back to actually redefine what do we mean when we're saying workplace, right? And so
Yeah.
the natural tendency of humans is to say, well, like, then let's just go back to the way that it was, because at least we know that it worked.
Well, and we had comfort in the familiarity of what that
Right.
is
And
and what it looked like.
yeah,
Yeah.
and we can debate whether or not it worked. I think it worked back then because that's what we knew. But
Yeah.
because of COVID, we now know something different. I think there's also a lot of generational differences
Yeah.
that are at play now. And so it does make it challenging, which is why I think that it comes down to, looking at, the ways of working, which could be in the office, from home, from some third space or some third location,
Yeah.
looking at the type of work that someone or groups of people are doing and what is required, in that work? Do they need to be together? Is it largely work that gets done on an individual level and then passed to somebody else, right? And so we have to dig deeper, much deeper into the ways that people are working to
Yeah.
understand what's actually impacting their well-being, and then design solutions that are differentiated. And so instead of one solution within an organization, that might be mean that there's 7 or 8 solutions within an
Yeah.
organization.
Which is harder to manage and to lead. So
Yeah.
I want to go, and we'll get to the book in a moment or two, but I want to talk about your journey, right? Like I doubt that, you know, Halloweens of years past, you wanted to be a workplace expert, right? There probably wasn't a costume for that. How did you? I'm always fascinated in how people get here, like what the journey was, and how did you decide that this is where you want to put your stake in the ground?
Yeah, absolutely. So I spent 23 years of my life and my career at Deloitte. And so I wasn't always a workplace well-being expert. How that came about, I started actually in the marketing organization at Deloitte, because
Mhm.
that is, part of my background. And then I went on to be the chief of staff for the chief operating officer, who then later became the chief executive officer. Coming out of that role was when and that was about 11 years ago, I experienced pretty significant burnout, to the point where I had to take a leave of absence to
Mhm.
really take care of myself. But what's significant about that is that 11 years ago, we weren't really talking about workplace well-being or burnout, not in the
Or
ways that
psychological
or
safety,
psychological
yeah,
safety, or
right,
so when some people kind of get down and they're like, we haven't made any progress, which it's easy to do, I remind them that, a decade ago we weren't even talking about these things, right?
yeah,
Nobody even had a understanding of what these concepts were, really, outside of perhaps, academic, and research areas. And so I didn't really know what I was experiencing or going through. I knew that I was struggling. I also worked in a very high performing environment. Big Four
yep,
accounting and
yep,
consulting is known for high performance. It's known for the grind. And so I didn't ask for help, didn't feel like I could ask for help, didn't really feel like I could say, hey, I can't handle this, because I felt like if I did, then, people would be like, well, she doesn't belong here. She can't,
right,
she doesn't
right,
cut it. So I just kind of kept doing what a lot of us do. I'm going to push through, and
right.
eventually something will get better. But it didn't get better. It just continued to get worse. And so, my brain finally said, "All right, stupid. If you're not going to do something about it, I'm going to force you to." And so I, woke up one morning, and it had been building for quite a while. And I really just could not function or, engage in life or work in any meaningful way. And that was kind of the biggest sign of like, okay, you really need to do something about this. So I took that time off. I took a leave of absence. I
Mhm.
worked on getting myself healthy, physically and mentally, and kind of understanding and redefining the role that work played
Stay
in
there a
my.
minute. That's might have been thought of as pretty extreme, right? To leave the big job. I mean, people are killing for jobs like that. Like a chief of staff job's a pretty intense, well compensated job at an amazing organization like a Deloitte. It's not like somebody working at the Gap that had a crappy week and said, "Oh, I'm out of here." Like you don't
Yeah,
just replace those. So that's a
yeah.
pretty extreme. I don't know about extreme, but courageous and bold move to say, "Peace out," right?
Perhaps I don't know that I saw it as courageous or bold. I just saw it as, I mean, it was almost like I
Necessary.
didn't have I didn't have a choice. It
Okay.
was almost, it was kind of like, okay, you can't keep going like this. And it was showing up in my work. Several people had had conversations with me about it. It wasn't a secret to anybody but me, really.
Got it.
And so I did have to take that leave of absence, focus on getting myself well mentally and physically, and in going through that process, redefining the role that I wanted work to play in my life.
Yep.
I started to become very passionate about the ideas and concepts that now sit under the banner of kind of workplace experience and
Yep.
workplace well-being. and so going back to work, I went to my leader and I had actually made the decision that I was going to leave. I was on a leave of absence, but I was
Yeah,
going to actually leave Deloitte. And she said to me, "You're not going anywhere, because if you need this, there's a lot of other people here that need it too." And so,
pretty
um,
cool, right? You could
really cool. I mean, when you talk about psychological safety, courageous leadership, however you want to,
But you also think
frame.
about the randomness of the magic 8 ball of what your
Yeah,
leader could have said, depending on who that person was, is good luck, be well, pack your bags, get out,
absolutely.
like nice having you here, or whatever. But that's a
Absolutely.
pretty
When you
evolved
think about
answer to that.
leaders and people that shape our lives and shape who we are and who we become,
Yeah,
those are those pivotal moments that you never forget. Because when she said you're not going anywhere, I was almost like, what do you mean? Like, you can't tell me what I'm gonna do.
right, right.
And so she really created the runway and the space for me to create the role of first chief wellbeing officer at Deloitte. And that's what I did. I spent, a good 4 to 6 months, building out the business case for why
Yeah,
we needed it, what it looked like, what the role would do, all of
sure.
that kind of stuff. And for a lot of people that are listening that might be interested in a role like this, what I tell people is, when I first started in the role, it was 25% of my time. Then it was 50% of my
Yeah,
time. And then it became, it was almost like I had to build
you
the
had to prove the
pace and the
case, right?
momentum as I was
Yeah.
doing it. It wasn't like overnight, like, hey, I wasn't and then I was type of thing.
So stay there for a minute, because now the next big piece is, now you're going to leave, right? So when you think about, and I see this a lot with the journeys that thought leaders take, you have an incredibly successful career, right? It's corporate, and you figured out how to succeed and thrive and all those things there. Then you got to go out there, and it's like, uh-oh, now I've got to, like, yeah, this sounded like a great thing, but I actually need clients that will pay me. I need to deal with technology. I need to deal with people. I need to deal with fun. Like,
Yeah.
that's a big adjustment for lots of
Yeah.
folks. How is that phase for you?
Well, I would say I'm still in that phase.
Okay.
Still adjusting. But I think a friend of mine that's an entrepreneur gave me some of the best, most insightful advice that I could get when I was telling her that one day that I felt like I had no idea what I was doing, and she said, "Don't worry, none of us do."
Just don't tell anyone. Right, right, right.
Yeah, but she said to me, "Okay, but when you were at Deloitte, did you always know what you were doing?" And I said, "No, but I'm smart and I work with smart people." And she was like, "Okay, and so you figured it out, and you can figure it out this time." And so, I remind myself of that every time I am experiencing self-doubt or running into a
Right.
barrier or saying, "Why in the world am I doing this? What was I thinking? Who do I think I am?" Which happens at least once weekly these days. And so I would say
Good.
I'm still figuring it out.
Cool.
But overall, I will say, for me and the place where I am in my career and in my life and the things that I want to do and accomplish, so far so good. I mean, there's positives and negatives to everything, but for me, so
Sure.
far so good. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So now the latest, this is your third book? Did I get that
Second
right?
book.
Second
Second.
book.
No, don't get me onto a third one yet. I just
Okay, no, I
published
wouldn't
the
wish that
second
on
one.
you. So the book just came out recently. It's
Yeah.
called Hope is the Strategy, which is so, I mean, such a, what's the word I'm looking, a title.
Contrarian point of view.
Yeah, it's such a, really, wait a minute. I thought the t-shirts all said, hope is not a strategy or whatever. So what is bringing hope into the workplace as a strategy? What does that actually mean, and why would I want to do that, and what's the benefit?
Yeah. So the title is Hope is the strategy on purpose, because I like to be the
Yeah,
contrarian. But what I will say is, we talked about my own burnout, and through my experience of recovering from burnout, that's actually when I discovered the research around hope and actually learned that hope was not what I had thought it was. That
okay,
hope is actually a cognitive and behavioral process, and most of us have been taught and or believe that hope is just just be positive about the future, positive vibes only, or, having an optimistic mindset. Hope is not a mindset. Hope is a cognitive process. And from the research from C.R. Snyder and Shane Lopez and so many others, hope requires three things. It requires having a goal and being very clear about that goal. It requires identifying multiple pathways or ways in which you can reach that goal, not just one way
Okay.
you can reach that goal, multiple ways. And then the third and probably most important is knowing that you have the ability to affect change, so that you can do something to make change to move
So,
towards that goal.
so stay there a minute because I love the way that you answer that from the standpoint of I'm a huge fan of models and methods and frameworks and definitions, right? Because when you throw out the word hope,
Yeah.
right, and if you don't define it, you're leaving open this opportunity for say, well, Peter thinks hope is A, B, C, and D, but when I
Right.
talk about it, it's this three. So now that I see it through your lens, now we're talking about the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really important because when you bring that type of thinking into an organization, it's like, okay, we could relate to that. It's not
Yeah.
this abstract,
No,
one day we'll
it's
get
not.
there, airy,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and so, what I say to leaders when I'm talking about hope and hope strategy, number one, I'm not saying hope is the only strategy, but I'm
right,
saying that, if you have, especially in today's workplace, if you have a big transformational strategy that you're trying to make happen, you're trying to, you
sure.
know, let's choose AI, because every organization under
Yeah.
the sun right now is grappling with what to do about AI. However, the majority of the messaging around AI is all fear based. You are not
Yeah.
getting your people on board with your AI transformation because it's leading to layoffs. I mean, it's leading to all of this thinking around, well, AI is just going to take everybody's job. So, I mean, one of the big things is if you have a hope strategy that sits next to or on top of or alongside your AI strategy, then you create a strategy and an environment that is much more human, that
Right.
thinks about the human aspects of whatever your strategy. And so I tell
Right, because
leaders,
if you're rolling out AI and you're doing like most organizations are doing, burying the elephant in the room where everybody's going, okay, well, we're going to embrace this, we're going to master this, and then you don't need me anymore,
right,
right? So let's figure out like a hope strategy might say, what are the things that I hope AI could help me do that
yeah.
are mundane or aren't value add so that I can do more of what I like to do or more of higher value or more. Then now I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I'd like to do that because there's a lot of junk I have to do to get through the day or the week or the month.
Right. And so, you can have the best strategy in the world, but if your people aren't on board with it, your strategy is going to struggle, right? Like if
Yeah.
they don't believe that whatever it is you're trying to do, AI or otherwise, if they don't believe that it's going to make their life better tomorrow than it is today, then they're done. And so
Yeah.
as leaders, and as colleagues, and just, I mean, this is important in every relationship in your life. You know, communicating and connecting with others in a way that inspires hope. And the other important thing that I think is that is very specific to hope is hope does not deny reality. Hope,
Right.
as a leader, hope will say, hey, this AI stuff is uncertain. We don't know where it's going to
Yeah.
go. Some of it makes me feel uncomfortable, but I believe in our collective ability to do the right thing, to get to the right place, to do it in a way that everybody is going to be able to thrive in our environment, right? And so
Right.
giving people reassurance, telling them that you have their back, but that's not what's happening, and that's not historically what has happened during big uncertain
Right.
transformational periods. And so
Exactly.
that's why hope is a strategy, and it's also a skill set, and it's a skill set that we're not taught as human beings and as leaders, because what we're taught is hope is not a strategy.
Yeah, and I like the way that you framed it as it's not the strategy, it's yet another
Yeah.
tool, right? It's
Right.
one strategy or something that could be integrated into a strategy. So I want to move into something you and I were talking about before we went live today, which is so the book is launched, right? So that's an exciting time and like a lot goes on there. And then you talked about sort of the like an emotional release or whatever.
Crash.
Right? So, hey, how are you? Right, right. So talk about that because that I've heard that before many, many, many times in my work with lots and lots of authors. It's not
Yeah.
it's usually not what the publisher's telling you about on the front end, but you're on that interesting period right on the other side of it. What is that about? What does that actually mean?
Yeah, and I actually posted about this on LinkedIn yesterday, and so it's as best as I can tell, and I think I'm still trying to integrate some of it because I'm just a week out from publication date. Is you know everything up to publication date is so kind of keyed in, locked in, focused to get to publication date, but
Right.
your work
Lots of Gantt charts.
really, yeah, and you're giving some ideas and some thoughts through podcasts and posts, and
Yeah.
but the book as a whole, your creative work that you poured your heart and soul into, isn't yet out in the world. And then publication day comes, and friends and family and people you know and don't know are sending you pictures with the book, and you're going, oh shit. Now it's out in the world. And so I have transferred everything that was in my heart and my head, essentially to you, to the public, to now hold and to judge. And I also just think it's that emotional release. Like, it's your nervous system, like, kind of recalibrating. And yeah, so for me, it was, the day after my publication day, there were lots of moments of tears, of like, just emotional release. I talked about it
Yeah.
kind of as a crash. I think some of it is truly the adrenaline crash, but I
Yeah.
think it's also both the fear and the excitement of something that you've worked towards for so long. I think this goes towards anything, not just a book, but kind of anything that you've worked towards for a long
Yeah,
time.
and what I was thinking about since you said that is, well, if you think about any major goal, accomplishment,
Yeah,
big work project, whatever, like the completion of something, a house renovate, like there's so many things where there's so much work put in, and then at some point, wait, it's done, right? Like period, full stop. Like,
yeah.
oh, and the
Yeah.
difference with a book
Yeah,
is,
and like, people are like, "Aren't you excited?" And I'm like, "I'm not really sure how." I'm excited now, but like, 3 days ago, I wasn't exactly sure how I felt. I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm supposed to be excited, right?"
yeah. Well, if you're not, why would a reader be? But I think the weird part about a book is most, like if you think about the closing dinner, right? Like there's an account that you land or something. So it
Yeah,
happens, and then there's a quick celebration. The difference with the book is, you hit send or whatever on the final manuscript, I don't know, a year ago, 8 months, like some time
yeah,
ago.
yeah.
So you have this calm before the storm where you know it's
The
happening.
fallow period, right? And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden,
And then it's lights, camera, action. It's like, whoa,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay. So there's a
yeah.
weirdness there. Um,
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think a lot of people experience it, but no one really talks about it because it feels like, wow, I shouldn't feel this way. And it's not a sadness. It's almost like a kind of a letting go, right? And so
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
people don't talk about it because they don't know if they're supposed to feel that way. And so I tend to want to be open and transparent about those kinds of things because I don't think I'm that unique. So if I'm feeling this way, others have felt
Yeah.
this way
Yeah.
or will feel this way.
Let me last thing I want to touch on. So when we think about workplace well-being, that's typically the Fortune 1000 large organizations and such
Yeah,
that you're working with. That's where you come from, that's where you're working with,
yeah,
right? In my world, the world of thought leaders, most of us have left that, right? Most of
yeah,
us are doing our own thing, or even the wildly successful ones, if they've got 50 or 100 people working for them, that's big in the thought
yeah.
leadership world. And many are uh, either solo or they've got a handful of people that help them or whatever the case is. What are the things that you can do as either an entrepreneur or an individual thought leader, someone that's not a Fortune 1000 person, to work on your workplace well-being? Did we just lose her? Well, okay then. Uh, all right. I guess we will. Oh
I-
no, she's back.
I'm
Well, we
back.
lost her.
I can
Thank
hear
you for
you,
that.
but you couldn't see me.
Yeah, that was some unscheduled cardio. Thank you for that.
we,
So what?
we were working on your workplace well-being.
Right, exactly. So yeah, what are the things that you can do as a solo, as remote, as entrepreneur,
Yeah,
whatever, from a workplace well-being? Because I think for a lot of those folks, they just use the term well-being, right? But
yeah,
it's but it's different. How would you
Yeah.
think about that?
I think it is different, but a lot of it is also the same, because people are people. I think that it's important, as a solo or as a small organization, to think about the same things. How are you designing your own day? What does your own calendar look like? Is it
Yep.
is it are you setting yourself up to be drained at the end of the day? Do you actually have time to do good focused work? To be that thought leader or that entrepreneur, or are you back to back? Are you doing things that, are you intentionally? I mean, I think one of the things that I've discovered when you ask me about the transition is, being solo, it can be really lonely. You can
Yeah.
go kind of days and weeks without
Yeah.
talking to somebody.
Totally. Totally.
And a lot of that inside of a large organization just happens naturally. And so, are you being intentional about reaching out to others and connecting with others and making sure that you are cultivating and developing, those relationships, whether it's one-on-one or going to
Mhm.
conferences, or those types of things. And so I still think that it's, design of work, the ways in which you're working. Are you in a dark office, that you never get up and you eat lunch at your desk, and and scoop your food into your mouth in 5 seconds flat? And so, design. So how is your day designed? What are your ways of working? Are you working in a way that is going to allow you to be creative and energetic? And then thinking about kind of your relationships. We know those are the top three things that are impacting people's well-being at work. So I think whether
Yeah.
you're solo, a large organization, medium, small, those things still stand true.
Got it. Got it. Cool. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate your time, and
Yeah,
thank you for
absolutely.
sharing all that you've shared today, Jen.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me.
My pleasure.